Hey, Michelle, what are we talking about today?
Well, that's a really good question, Mattie. So, what I've done is I've gotten some essays from some Harvard students, some students who applied to Harvard and they actually got in. And I'm just curious to see what your takes on them are. So, I'm going to read you a little bit of an excerpt and then hear what you've got to say.
Let's do it. I think that'll be super fun.
So, what we're going to dive in today is some essays from students who were accepted into Harvard. The reason why I wanted to kind of look at these essays is kind of connecting back to your first episode, Mattie, where you're talking about why so many things go wrong in college essays and like your kind of college essays. So I'm really curious to hear your insight and your opinions on what you thought about these essays and what made them work, but also maybe what could the students could have improved upon. And I remember going through this whole process because I have a son now in college. So I got to go through the college application process with him and just being so hungry for information, and not just information, but like insight. And so I really think that hearing your opinions today will help others who are kind of going through that process too. And of course, as we know, what's funny now is having gone through that process, now I get to be working with you and helping other students go through this process and helping them. For me, the specialty that I feel like I can really help students with is their student resumes, also their extracurricular lists, and of course, you're the master of the essay.
You're my resident, right? Like it's all coming together. Yeah. So with these essays, I guess I tend to be I learn these with actual students is like if it wasn't my idea, I hate it. So like I have a bad habit of being like, nah, it's garbage, absolute garbage, get rid of it. But these worked, and like students often ask me like, what is the goal of of this essay or what have you? And it's not really a joke. It's like to get your ass into college, child. Like that is the actual goal of these essays, and by definition, these were effective. So I guess I will give critiques, like or what could have been better, but the reality is like they were effective. Like they were what like they have their goals. So it's more. I'm going to use these as an example, whatever they kind of remind me of, or whatever I want to talk about. And I already imagine it's going to be a lot of me talking about previous students I had in a similar situation, a lot about the topics or how we went with them, and maybe divulging like what I learned from that experience or how we went differently. That's probably what it will mostly be about. But I'm excited to hear them. What do you got for me?
Cool. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. So this is Marcus. Marcus's essay starts off, he's telling us a story about he's watching otters at the zoo when he was young, and he was wondering, why do the otters keep disappearing? Because he wanted to see them, do their little antics in front of him. And his mom told him, sometimes the animals get tired of being watched. They just want to be left alone. And so then Marcus then goes into his essay and he tells us about his sophomore year of high school where he's transitioning from female to male and being the center of unwanted attention and mocking. And one day a group of boys started recording him. And so from Marcus's essay, I was the star of a humiliating show that I never asked to be a part of. I had become the otter. Their laughs kept ringing in my ears as I sat alone on the bus. I wanted to crawl inside myself and implode rather than think about going back to face them again the next day. My phone kept buzzing, but I refused to check it. It was only when I arrived home and checked those messages that I found that the video had been posted across social media for hundreds of my peers to see. It seemed like nothing, just a video of me walking, turning, and looking away. But their laughs were clear in the background, and I still understood the point of the video. Look at the freak. Look at the new zoo exhibit.
Yeah. So this paragraph, I checked it before, very much reminds me of a student I worked with, I believe, 4 years ago. And we had a similar experience where we were talking about like a hard issue. And it wasn't exactly the same. It was their sexuality, stuff like that. However, I remember at the time explaining to her that like this is gonna work because you're a really strong writer and like this is like good actual credible writing, and that's what I think of a lot whenever it comes to writing about like, and this is a genuine difficult issue and it's handled very tastefully and very very nicely. Like, you kind of need to do that, especially at this high level, because this like such a topic is kind of has a lot of ways it can go like real awry. It's like it's a sensitive subject, and I'm aware that a lot of students want to talk about sensitive subjects because it's so important to them. I guess it's like seeing a successful version of it makes it probably more apparent like how important it is to be successful, to do it in a way that is like clear and well written. I guess I get why you picked this one. The actual writing, if you go back to like the episode I just did before, like is this actually is written in a memoir style. So you compare it to the paragraph I read in the first one. It's like it seemed like nothing, just a video of me walking, turning, and looking away. But their laughs were clear in the background, and I still understood the point of the video. This is actually a really nicely used narrative trick. So whenever in my personal writing or with students, whenever you're allowed to use direct quotes or actually be that omniscient narrator I talked about before, it is specifically when, well, like, A, when something's traumatic, which this actually applies for, like, 'cause that's when you can use quotes. Like if it's like I never want to see you again. Short quotes like that in a really hard situation, those can be used because it actually like you do remember is the mindset behind it. But also with this, anything that involves emails or videos or checklists or things that you could in theory have go back and actually look at right now or have seen multiple times, that kind of is a cheat code to be able to be omniscient because that actually lets you be there. And something I'm going to talk a lot about in essay writing is like authenticity. It is the idea that what you're reading is it's not just believable, but it comes off as like it's really how like like authenticity. It's kind of hard to define, but like this reads like an authentic paragraph about this. A, because the topic is, I think, just like simple, like reading it, it's like you could tell that would be a difficult situation. Also, it's believable that such a thing could happen to a high schooler, but also it's done in a way where it's basically talking about like video coverage that was posted around and his live reaction to that coverage. All of it like comes together to actually work. And I guess I appreciate this essay because it does handle a topic I know is like very difficult to write about in a way that would be effective. I like it. It's good. I also would let them into Harvard, I suppose.
And what do you think just about in terms of like choosing a college essay topic about a struggle or a challenge? How do students kind of weigh, whether it's something that they should cover or not?
This is definitely worthy of its own video in of itself. I actually wrote about it. I think it was called like "Do Not Write About Mental Health in Your College Application Essay," which is a little on the nose, and I've softened a little bit from that point, but not a ton. As a general rule, for those wondering, if you're not sure, I recommend against it. Like, there's a reason I spend so much time with this, not talking about like the bravery of such an essay or like, wow, I've such a powerful story. It's more being like, I'm really glad they pulled it off. I'm really glad that it was handled in a way that actually was effective and doesn't, and like, that's why my takeaway was almost relief, because when you challenge yourself with like such a hard issue, you are building up a lot more difficulty as far as what you're supposed to accomplish and if that's going to be effective or not. If it doesn't go right, it can go very wrong very quickly. Whereas I would say a much safer topic, like something I'll get to, is just like how much you love something or how much you enjoy doing something or what it means to you. That has honestly like a similarly high ceiling of success. Like if it goes well, it really will go well for your results and it's a good, well-written essay. But the negative, if it's poor, like it doesn't have the same, like there's a lot of things that can go bad. But I guess as a general rule, unless you are as talented a writer as this student or have the support of someone that can help your writing get to a certain level, I don't know if it's a great idea to talk about those things, because I don't believe the fact that this student is trans or went through that experience inherently is why they got into Harvard. And I think I say that like as a compliment, quite honestly. I am not of the belief that being that like overcoming certain hurdles or having rough challenges inherently makes you much more likely to get into college. Like trauma dumping is kind of like the nickname for it. I steer away from that pretty much by design. One of my active rules for personal statements with students is like nothing negative. And it used to be like everything has to be super positive, best thing ever. But it's more that staying away from negativity or difficult situations, it's just easier. Like it's easier and it works better. And I greatly prefer it. Like it's easier for me too. That's the case though. That's why this reminds me of a student from 4 years ago in which the like stars aligned, in which she was both a fabulous writer, the strongest I've ever worked with, had a story that she really wanted to tell. And like it was obvious that like that was like what she wanted to write, and she could back it up. And I guess that one's kind of like it's a small data set, to be fair, but it's kind of like an incomplete. Like other things got in the way, so I don't know exactly like if that would have gotten her into Harvard. Like there were other problems that arose that were unrelated to her essays, so it's difficult for me to straight up say that like it's not effective. However, I know through multiple years of experience that unless the student really wants to write about it and I really feel like we can get it done, no, because that was the case last year and I regretted it. And we changed our essay at the last minute. You remember, you know who I'm talking about? No, like I would not, it would be difficult. That's the thing is that I give high compliments to the writer. I read a couple other paragraphs of it. It's like this thing came together in a way I get why it was effective, but maybe consider if you're able to reach that level of writing because this is professionally written. Like that's kind of my overall take on it.
So now we're going to move on to the second essay. For this essay, I'm going to go ahead and read the whole thing so that we can go ahead and see kind of the structure of the essay, because that's kind of an important concept behind this one. So this is Orlee's essay. I'm hiding behind the swing door of the dressing room when I text my mom just one word: traumatizing. I'm on a bra shopping expedition with my grandmother, and just in case it's not abundantly clear, this trip was not my idea. Bra shopping has always been shrouded in mystery for me, and growing up in a household with 2 moms and 2 younger sisters hasn't helped one bit. One of my moms doesn't wear bras. The other proudly proclaims that her bras are older than me. A 2-mom family without the faintest idea what a teenage girl needs. Par for the course around here. So when my 78-year-old grandmother volunteered to take me bra shopping, my moms jumped at the chance. Here I was with my frugal grandmother, outlet shopping among the racks of intimates that aren't sized quite right, that have too much padding or too little. You can see my predicament, and it's no surprise that my younger self was confused by the words wire-free, concealing petals, balconette. The saleswoman called to my grandmother from across the store. What cup size is she? I don't know, my grandmother screamed back. Can you measure her? Measure me? They have got to be kidding. I just don't want her to feel different, I heard my grandmother say later that day. Kids this age can be so mean. I love my grandmother, but she believes the world is harsh and unforgiving, and she thinks that the only path to happiness is fitting in. My grandmother had taken me bra shopping in a last-ditch effort to make me normal because I was entering 9th grade at Deerfield in a few weeks, and she worried that I would stick out worse than the underwire of a bargain basement bra. It's true, I'm not your typical Deerfield student. I'm a day student with lesbian moms who have several fewer zeros on their bank account balance than typical Deerfield parents. I'm the kid with a congenital foot deformity, which means I literally can't run, who will never be able to sprint across campus from classroom to classroom. I'm the kid with life-threatening food allergies to milk and tree nuts, who can't indulge in the pizza at swim team celebrations or the festive cake and ice cream during advisory meetings. But fitting in was my grandmother's worry, not mine. What my grandmother didn't consider is that there's no single way to fit in. I might be 2 minutes late to class than the sprinters, but I always arrive. I might have to explain to my friends what having 2 moms means, but I'll never stop being thankful that Deerfield students are eager to lean in and understand. I may not be able to eat the food, but you can count on me to show up and celebrate. While I can't run, I can swim and play water polo, and I can walk the campus giving admissions tours. My family might not look like everyone else's, but I can embrace those differences and write articles for the school newspaper or give a talk at school meetings sharing my family and my journey. Some of my closest friendships at Deerfield have grown from a willingness on both sides to embrace difference. On one of the first days of 9th grade, I sat down to write a Deerfield bucket list, a list of experiences that I wanted to have during my 4 years in high school, including taking a Deerfield international trip and making the varsity swim team. That list included 13 items, and I'm 11/13ths of the way there, not because I have the white bra, but because I've embraced the very thing that my grandmother was afraid of. Bra shopping is still shrouded in mystery for me, but I know that I am where I should be. I'm doing work that matters to me, and fitting in rarely crosses my mind.
Okay, yeah, originally I had you just read the excerpt, and this is a really good version of. I'm going to be looking at this essay instead of staring at you, by the way. This is a really good version of an essay. I guess I see a lot that I'm not. This is very unlike the type of work I would do with a student, which is different than the first one we talked about. Where like that's why I liked it so much. It reminded me of like that sounds like me. It sounds like the work I do with students. This one is basically like alongside authenticity, structure is a major component to how I see good writing and all good writing, but also college admission essays. And at some point, I'm going to have actual probable like students talk to like bring essays or anything like that on here, and I guarantee you like structure is going to come up because that is often where I first look whenever I you may have like if you're watching like the video, me just like looking like confused while you were reading the whole thing, like that was me trying to figure out the structure of this essay. And that like this is a great example of why these like I went insane reading these when I was trying to learn this process, because every individual like this is well written, I would say, mostly like the actual paragraphs themselves all make sense. However, they don't really like the way they're structured and ordered is like who like tell a story, person. So I guess we'll start with something I found was interesting is literally I'm hiding behind the swing door of the dressing room when I text my mom just one word, traumatizing. That actually fits both of what I said before, where it's like it's she's being traumatized so she can write about it, and also it's a text message. So that I thought was cute. Like we get away with that one. Yeah, but also like the actual writing structure works well. Bra shopping has always been shrouded in mystery for me, and growing up in a household yeah, like this it makes sense. Like I like the essay, so like this first paragraph about yeah, like the way what it means to go bra shopping in a like a different household. That's fine. And the grandmother shows up. I guess that's okay. I guess you will see here that if maybe I'm just crazy, but like the saleswoman called to my grandmother from across the store. What cup size is she? I don't know. My grandmother screamed back, "Can you measure her? Measure me? They have got to be kidding." These three paragraphs I think are not as effective, and maybe like it's up to, you know, you're reading these at home. This is exactly what I mean about it doesn't come off as like measure me, they have got to be kidding, like it comes off a kind of a tacky line, I suppose. Like that's not that's how you felt, but also any almost never will I have full scale like quotes or conversations in essays I do with students, full stop. I can count on one hand whenever I've had it, and it's almost always like a text message chain or something like that, because this is in seventh grade, and like it's like you reading like, can you think back to like even like an embarrassing or moment like an exchange, but also like this isn't the exchange that you would remember. What cup size is she? I don't know. Can you measure her? I suppose like that's not exactly that isn't what you would remember in such a scenario. And it seems like a little thing and like kind of pedantic, but it's stuff like that 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 I glom onto, because like that is what pulls a reader out of a story like these. You see something like that and you're like, what? And if you're ever reading these college essays, like you just kind of like goes one ear and out the other. You just kind of zone out, and like it's pretty, like it's well written, and it's competent, but like it doesn't mean anything. Like it's stuff like that, and like the structure we'll get to that kind of leads to that. I just don't want her to feel different. I heard my grandma say like kids these days can be so mean. Like I don't believe you. Like I don't believe any quotes like this written in this format. Unless there's enough support around them, they come off as like I don't yeah like I don't believe you is kind of my takeaway of this. And that's because I'm a weirdo writer who's like judging these. To the average reader, they won't think that. They just kind of check out. They go, like that's the reaction. And it leads to just kind of like a glazed kind of look that does not. That's where the reader disconnects. Like yes, something I'll talk about eventually is the idea of making an emotional connection with your admissions reader or anything like that. That's totally true. But part of that is not making that emotional disconnection. And lines like this, the saleswoman called it, you know, that is what like leads to a disconnect. And then like it's kind of hard to get people back, because that's kind of where I got checked out. But then we get back to talking about your grandmother, and it's fine. But then there's like this paragraph here. It's true. I'm not your typical Deerfield student. I'm a day student with lesbian moms who have several fewer zeros on their bank account balance than typical Deerfield. That's fine. But I'm a kid with a congenital foot deformity, which means I literally can't run, who will never be able to sprint across campus from classroom to classroom. I'm the kid with life-threatening food allergies to milk and tree nuts who can't indulge in the pizza at swim celebrations of the festive cake and ice cream during advisory meetings. Uh, this is Michelle, this would not be the type of paragraph I would do with a student in a type of essay.
I don't see it. No.
Neither in form nor function, I suppose. Like this is the I refer to it as kind of like a getting my shit in paragraph. Sometimes it refers to the work you do, but like well like in theory this is like getting your shit in paragraph, like or like fun fact paragraph. And the worst a worse version of this is when you kind of get like fun fact essays. Like a lot of bad essays I've read, like we're gonna do this again by the way with bad essays. I think it'll be fun. I'll just bury them, because this is actually like yeah I'll be full hater mode. But like this one, pretend it's not about like things that are weird, like wrong, like he's embarrassed by or bad. Instead, it's just the idea of like I'm like this. I also feel this way. I also do this way. That stuff's okay, but it has to relate to the core narrative that's going on, and that's where like this essay starts falling apart for me, because none of this has anything to do with bra shopping nor living in like a non-traditional household with people. That's why this paragraph, I think this is one you originally brought up. It's like I want to read the whole essay, because this paragraph on its own, I guess I could critique the other half of it, which is honestly like less severe, but I don't recommend you just kind of like talk about all the stuff you suck at in a college essay, like full stop. Like it's kind of this isn't cheeky enough, or like again, something that I think we'll come down to is when you want to do stuff that I don't think is a great idea. Generally, it has to be saved by terrific writing, and this isn't terrifically written. Like this doesn't come off as like cheeky really or charming in a way. Like there's a way to do it. But then I beg the question. I ask the question: is like, well, if you are that talented, right? Like I wouldn't have you do it anyways because it's like stylistically it doesn't make a ton of sense. So like, unlike the last essay, which that one also I get why that student would want to write about that. Like that's the difference. Like why I this section in particular, I'd be the most curious, like what led to them doing this here, because the rest of this essay is competently written enough that either the student or whoever helped them with it like knows how to put an essay together. I don't understand this either, like stylistically, why it's so negative, talking about weird stuff, or how it fits into this essay as it's currently going on. Because then we go right back into fitting it was my grandmother's worry, not mine. Right. Is that there's no single way to fit in, I suppose. Yeah, it's a weird trans I guess that's like the structure of this kind of falls apart because we were building up a certain like story about like what it means to be in such a family, and it doesn't quite connect. Like I guess like what my grandmother would consider is that there's no single way to fit in. Like that is probably the thesis statement, I suppose, of this essay. But they're kind of trying to glom onto it on the back end after introducing a whole bunch of weird stuff that has nothing to do with what they're talking about. And I just feel like they're like so this is what actually happens when I read essays. I get flustered. Well, I can't run. I can swim and play water polo. I can walk the campus giving admissions tours. My family not moved like everyone else, but I embrace these differences and write articles for a school newspaper, give a talk at school meetings, share my family, my journey. Some of my closest friendships at Deerfield have grown from willingness on both sides to embrace difference. On one of the first days of ninth grade, yeah, and then it just kind of leads, like it just gets meandering. Like this is why structure is so important to me, because this essay has structure for the first half of it. While I was talking about the bra store, then I don't like the part where there's quotes, but that's like not the thing. At least I just don't want to feel different. I heard my grandmother say kids days can be so mean. I love my grandmother, but she leaves the world as harsh enough. Yeah, like this has structure. Like it makes sense. Everything is linking to the paragraph before it. Then it completely seems to just fall apart where they just talk about like weird things, and then it fails to recollect. It's kind of heated. Like it fails to recollect what the essay is even really about, and kind of just ends up with, I would say, like platitudes. I'll never stop being thankful that Deerfield students are eager to lean in and understand. I may not be able to eat the food, but you kind of need to show up and celebrate. Like that's a platitude. It's a lousy sentence, and it almost feels a cliche. And that's what ends up happening when you don't have something to write about. Like this feels like two different essays. The first half being a much stronger version. Now, if I were to meet the student, I would basically say like the first half is cool, like it's well written, and like I'm not gonna lie, I feel like a lot of college essays kind of feel like this. The Costco essay, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, reads the same. Like it gets weaker as it goes down the line. And my theory is that it's because the writer themselves or whoever was helping them with kind of got tired as this thing went along. It's like there's like people will spend a lot more time and energy drafting and figuring out the first third to a half to 60% of the essay, but then the ending is kind of like rushed together. It just doesn't have the same level of polish. Doesn't make as much sense to me. And I think maybe that's why having an outline or having like knowing where you're going with an essay in the first place is so gosh darn important. Because am I crazy, Michelle? Like I don't know. Like, this is what got me.
No, that's a really, I think, good takeaway is like you need to have an outline, you need to have some structure before you set your pen to paper.
If I could meet with this student, I would say the first half is cool. It's not like the story's a little silly. I'd maybe shorten it, but I guess like the idea of growing up in a non-traditional house, it's maybe not what I would necessarily go topic wise. There's always going to be a difference in this, and when we're discussing essay stuff, things like I think is objectively not correct, and things like it's simply not my style. Like I don't think I would guide a student that way. They're very different, and I will make a distinction there that I don't think I would have a student write about this because I just don't like. Less the bra stuff. It's kind of a funny story. Like I don't know, but also like just the idea of growing up in like a not. That's not my problem with this essay. It's more that it doesn't lead to anything that I really think is satisfying. So you have the bra shopping, and then. Yeah, it's I guess the takeaway is like it's okay that her family's different and so is she. But then it's like I can embrace these differences and write in our articles for the school newspaper or give a talk at school meetings, share my family and my journey. Some of my closest friends at Deerfield have grown from willingness on both sides to embrace difference. Like I some of my closest friends just have grown from a willingness on both sides to embrace. Like that line sucks, like objectively, and I worry people are gonna be like, I like the essay, he's just a hater. But like it leads to lines like that don't mean anything. this essay doesn't really have like doesn't have a conclusion, and that's why it doesn't lead to anything powerful. Like I don't really understand. I guess I would talk with her. We'd run it back. The first half makes sense. It's like, okay, so like, what has this bra shopping really meant to you? Like, what kind of experiences? And then she would like, people are different. I would go, okay, and like we can then cut out all the stuff about like not being able to run. Like taking a Deerfield international trip and making the varsity swim team. That was included 13 items, and I'm 11/13 of the way there. Not because I have the right bra, because I embraced the very thing that my grandmother was afraid of. Bra shopping still shrouded mystery me, but I know that I am where I should be. I'm doing work that matters to me, and fitting in rarely crosses my mind. I guess I'm getting flustered and like not even making good points because this is what happens when I read essays that like the structure breaks down for me is that, and this was not the last time you're going to have me do this with an essay, and that because this is how it actually works. As soon as I don't really understand what's going on in an essay, I get really flustered and upset about it. But like understand this. That's because I'm a professional writer who's like trying to analyze this and make it better. An admissions reader is just gonna kind of like and like that's what actually happens with someone else reading it is like huh, what? And you cannot give like your admissions reader the benefit of the doubt that they're going to really dig in and try to make the connections that way. So the reason like having that structure, having it be kind of obvious and really like very much apparent what you're trying to say and what the story is as a priority at all times. This is a good example. Yeah, like they got to Harvard though. Like I don't know who the hell am I? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. So if I have one takeaway from this, if for like students who are like, okay, like Mattie doesn't like the essay, that means it's bad. What do you do instead? Is well, it's going to be something I'm going to talk a lot about. Is structure. Is that essays should each paragraph in an essay should link naturally to the one before it, and that should link naturally to the one after it. And those paragraphs should all, I guess, conglomerate or all should combine into a fully function like story or thought or experience for the reader. And that is kind of a lot easier said than done, but it's very important. What you can do is that you should have people when you write an essay, the entire thing should be like one coherent thought, I suppose, and that's where this one broke down. And you can go ahead and find this essay, and it really is a coherent thought or a coherent story about till the first halfway through. But then we get to the second half, and it just turns into like I don't know what it is, and the fact that I can't really make heads or tails of what they're really trying to say, that is symptomatic of that structure kind of breaking down.
Okay, so we're going to move on and we're going to talk about Daniella's essay now. So her essay is basically about baking cookies. She tried it once, and the first time that she baked cookies, they turned out perfectly. But every time now that she tries to replicate that very first batch, they just don't quite turn out the same. But she keeps trying over and over again. So Daniella's essay starts out, I then approached the problem like a pianist, taking the advice my teacher wrote in the margins of my sheet music and pouring it into the mixing bowl. There are 88 pitches on a keyboard, and there are a dozen ingredients in the recipe. To create a rhapsodic dessert, I needed to understand all of the melodic and harmonic lines and how they complemented each other. I imagined the recipe in Italian script, the chocolate chips as quick staccatos suspended in a thick adagio medium. But my fingers always stumbled at the coda of each performance, the details of the cookies turning to a hodgepodge of sound.
I know why you picked this one. Okay, so this one is, well, we're going to be spoiling it. Like, basically, this is the most, like, kids, if you want to know, if instead of trusting a weird college consultant man or like paying a weird college consulting man, I suppose, if you go to like a high level college consulting firm, which it's actually, that's what this website is, right? It's like 10 successful Harvard. Yeah, it's the Crimson, right? It's like 10 successful Harvard essays that you can then pay to have yours sound like, right? Isn't that kind of like the takeaway? This ain't no charity either. Like, sorry, but this podcast, but collegewithmattie.com, become a Zoomer today. What this is, and I might read it again, is basically, so I'm going to get to it sooner rather than later, and we're starting with essay stuff because it's my kind of my wheelhouse. But another aspect of this podcast is going to be general strategy for getting into top level schools, and I'm not going to spoil it yet because it's going to be its own episode. But I have a general strategy that is referred to as FLL, and I will not spoil what that stands for because that's the fun part. But basically, it is a general general idea of like what is the most effective. And I talked about in, I guess, the last two essays. I'm not a huge fan of like negativity or like difficult challenges or overcoming them. And like there's a lot of stuff I don't like in college essays, and why I don't like them ranges from I just don't, it doesn't match my personal stylings, to I generally think it's a bad idea, to some of the most common is like it can work, but why would you do something that can work if you're really talented and make it work, instead of doing something that works a lot easier and is just a better idea in general? And this paragraph is essentially, and the key is my general strategy is like I have my own quirks about it, but it is not some like magical fairy thing that I've come up with. I don't explain it to students, and they're not, well, they're not weirded out. It's not like insane, but also it's not like it's groundbreaking. It just makes a lot of sense when you hear it out in full. And generally, like you may know it as intellectual vitality, or IV, if you will. And what it is essentially is schools are very interested in, when you're applying to college, you're applying to be a student. Like that's the big trick question answer. And because of that, the knowers of things, like say exhibitions readers who go on to work for these companies like these, like kind of know like that is the big secret. And what you end up with are this paragraph. I then approached the problem like a pianist, taking the advice my teacher wrote in the margins of my sheet music and pouring it into the mixing bowl. This is like written in a lab. Like this is what you will get if you pay a lot of money and go work at to go work with a high level college consulting firm, and like a good one, to be fair. What you'll get is intellectual vitality.
That's exactly why I wanted you to read this paragraph.
Michelle, she's not just making cookies. There are 88 pitches on a keyboard. There are a dozen ingredients in the recipe. It is a style, like it. I find this.
It's like a thing.
This student got into Harvard, though. You know, like, yeah. There are 88 pitches. To create a rhapsodic dessert, I needed to understand all the melodic and harmonic lines and how they complement. No, you didn't, bitch. You're making cookies. Get the fuck out of here. I imagine the recipe in Italian script. Yeah, and this is what it reads. So I don't know how the rest of this essay reads. However, an entire essay like this, I refer to as a daisy chain essay. And this is actually what I actively tell students I don't like. It would not shock me if this keeps going. My creative outlet. Yeah, like I would say a better version of this is there's just like a paragraph about it. But the worst version of this, and you'll read entire essays with it, is imagine it's the entire essays of her making the cookies. Like I approached the problem with the pianist. But the daisy chain version is even worse. It was like I made the cookies. I noticed there were 9 chocolate chips on each form. Suddenly, Pythagoras' number jumped into mind. And then like the entire paragraph about some math thing. It's like, but oh god, there are 88 pitches on a keyboard and there are a dozen ingredients in a recipe. I hate you. Okay, so like that is the thing. Is I'm getting extra cranky about this one because the fact that this worked, I guess, bums me out. Like that's maybe the thing, is that this essay was created in a lab to check off the correct boxes. And I do encourage students, you know, like to continue listening when I kind of get to finally talk about what my strategy is and everything like that. It'll probably be in a couple episodes, because it's not that different from this in theory. Like it is the same basic premise of presenting a general enthusiasm and love of learning. However, there's just ways to do it that aren't like this. Like I hate this person reading this paragraph. It's part because like I'm getting cranky because like I'm getting kind of tired and needed a bagel, but also more so is like I just know exactly how this paragraph came together, and like maybe that's why I get so like upset about it.
And do you feel like the authenticity is lost?
Oh, zero. There's zero authenticity. And again, like this was a Harvard essay that worked, that they are now advertising to, and maybe, yeah, I'm also similarly excited to show off some of my students' essays, and I can show like I know exactly like how this paragraph came together, and there's other ways to do it that don't have to read like this. Like imagine this is part of college essays. I mean, and maybe it's making sense to me why I went insane. Like just coming from this world of like what is a good nonfiction essay, I had to also figure out how you implement like how you get into college, and that was completely new to me. Like there is a way to meld them. Those are 2 big aspects of like the style of writing my students I coach them on. And I guess this one is 100% like juiced with a version of like this was effective for a reason. Like maybe that's why I'm cranky, is that like I understand. And part of why this podcast exists is like if this paragraph sounds like crap to you, student reading at home, but also like, but how they get into Harvard, I know why. Like I know exactly why this got them into Harvard, and that's what I promise. Is like I'm going to present. You don't have to sound like this. You really don't. Like it's there are 88 pages on a keyboard and there are a dozen ingredients in the recipe. I hate it. Okay, so
I love that. I feel like the takeaway, well, you tell me, but my takeaway that you just said was you don't have to sound like that to get into Harvard.
yeah, and my one takeaway is like the mindset behind it though is very important. Like if you want to like please continue listening on. There will be more episodes. Like do not write like this, but this paragraph is the reason I started with like I know why you picked this paragraph, because we have talked about this very concept quite a bit. Is I get like, whereas the last two essays were about topics that I both, the first one I liked, but I wasn't sure if it was what I would go with, like, as the best way to get into college. The second one I thought was just okay, and I definitely didn't think it was the best way to go to college. This one I also don't like, but I totally get why it got them into college. And that is why I'm angry about this one, because like this is part of the game here. And like, you'll find that the advice is like, keep listening, because there's more to come about this. Bookmark this paragraph. We're going to talk about it again in the future when I can say more.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. One line is like, the student got in probably because they were a strong applicant overall, but also demonstrated demonstrated intellectual vitality within their application essays. And what that is and why it is so important is for another episode, but it really is at the core of what I'm going to try to get across in this entire podcast. Oh, you picked a good one there. Okay.
Oh, okay. So the next one, we're going to learn more about Francisco. So basically, he starts out his essay. He went to the chiropractor and he learned that not only does he have scoliosis, but that he drinks so much milk that it's caused him like a hormone imbalance. So he decides to quit drinking milk cold turkey. After that, he heads out to Massachusetts. He's participating in the Minority Introduction to Engineering and Science program. And in his essay, he is unsure about what he's supposed to expect. He's not sure if he's going to be making friends. And then he finds out that this program hosts a Thursday evening family meeting. And so in his essay, he says, "We learned that family meeting was a safe space for us to talk about anything and everything. Today's theme was, what's something important about your identity that makes you unique? But the conversation quickly evolved into so much more. People spoke about losing family members, being shunned at home, not feeling comfortable in their own skin, and more. So many people opened up about incredibly personal things. I felt honored to be given that trust. The room was somber and warm with empathy as the meeting concluded. Out of my peripheral vision, I saw Izzy, one of my machine learning classmates, rushing back to the conference room. I realized something was not right. Instinctively, I followed her back to where we were working. Izzy sat down and immediately broke down. The rest of us filled in as she started to talk about what was wrong. It felt as though an ambulance was sitting on my chest. My breaths were short and stingy. I was afraid my support wouldn't be good enough, afraid to show that I cared, afraid they didn't care for me. In this one moment, all my insecurities, some I didn't even know I had, came to the surface. The heavy silence of hushed sobbing was broken by an outpouring of support and a hug. We all started sharing what we're going through and even some of our past trauma. Slowly, that weight is lifted off my chest. I feel comfortable. I feel wanted. I feel safe."
Okay, you want to know my honest takeaway from this one? This paragraph is way too long, and I didn't pay attention to a single thing you said. And it's, so hear me out. It's actually because I'm still like heated and honestly kind of tired from the last rant, like in the last two. However, you didn't read the whole thing. No,
that was just one paragraph.
I assume, Charlene, you can have these on. By the way, Charlene's our podcast producer. Hi, Charlene. Say hi to everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Base. There we go. It's a truette. It's a trio. I'm not going to read it, but I definitely want to make sure that this wall is presented in full as I'm talking about this, because let me see how many words this is.
It's probably like 250. Let me see. 299.
So yeah, nearly one half of this essay in full is a single paragraph. And this is again going to sound like I'm bullying, but you can't actually write like this. So it's like little things like that. I guess my takeaway is like the essay, it's probably not a comment to the essay either. Nothing about it really grabbed me, but I swear I went to find where you were reading. I couldn't find it in the giant like wall paragraph of text.
Just a wall.
And this is gonna sound like I worry this was gonna sound like extra like Mattie just being like a cranky jerk about it. However, yeah, it's also because I'm still mad about the other one, and like I get kind of tired and I kind of need to eat like more of my bagel kind of thing. However, when you apply to college, what you're actually at the mercy of is usually some dude or lady in their kitchen who's like, it's 4
So
a.m.
true.
and this is essay 612 of the 600 of the 800 they have to get done because in the next 3 days. I promise you, like, they're going to be like, there's no promises. They don't care about you. They don't know anything. And for the I, as a professional college man who's really trying to make the podcast work, and show, my actual takeaway is like, I didn't pay attention because this paragraph is too long. It is so easy to just zoom on to the last paragraph. It's like, this is the first time I felt truly confident, empowered, and loved. I'm surrounded by people smarter than me. Yeah, I just moved on because, and I guess, yeah, like the one takeaway of that is that little things matter. I'm always going to recommend to students, like, the college admissions process is very difficult, and it's why like people like us exist, and why like getting support on this process is so important. Like, the student did still get into Harvard, so like, I don't know, but little thing. As much as I'll be talking about like what to do in this podcast and like all the good ideas that make sense, there's gonna be a lot of emphasis on like what not to do. It's a million. I call them landmines, and there are 10 trillion tiny ways that this process can go wrong, and many of which like will make sense to you. Some of them require a little bit of insight, and quite honestly, quite a few of them I had to learn the hard way myself. Like, they're much more subtle, and something as simple as not knowing to use paragraph breaks, which can seem like you don't need to or should, because the actual application form you just paste into a giant HTML box, but it does have like paragraph capacity, is unbelievably important, because if you don't do so, you're going to, like, the actual person reading this is going to get a printed out 500, I guess 300, was it 300 words, 400 words? Yeah, 300 word block of what you're trying to say. And just normal reading is like, well, what do you do when you get a wall of text? Like, it's very uninviting in particular. And in a high pressure situation in which you are trying to desperately get the attention and make emotional connection with someone who's like who does 800 of these a night and is like not paid anything, like, little stuff like that matters way more than you might think it does. So like, I feel okay that my honest answer is that I'm too tired to analyze this one. It seems like kind of a lousy essay. I don't know. That's my basic takeaway on it. And like, that stuff does matter.
I didn't know you were going to be like bagel deficient when you read it, but I did
I'm
want
always
you
bagel
to.
deficient. I've been talking.
But I did want you to like kind of get that sense of
Was that your
this was
takeaway?
just like.
Is that why you presented this one?
Mhm. Yeah, because I wanted you to kind of say, if you were in the shoes of someone who had read, 400 or 500 of these, how would you feel getting kind of that wall of text?
I'm telling you, Michelle, you're setting up the serves here. I'm very impressed with these, because for all four, have I gone on the rants that you were expecting me to?
Yeah, pretty much.
Based.
I didn't build in the bagel deficiency, though. That just kind of came naturally. So
it's like I'm the Hulk. It's like I'm always my blood sugar's always low, so I'm always cranky. So it's and even now when I feel bad about it, like, this isn't the right stage, I cannot physically go ahead and read this, because a wall of text is a terrible, terrible mistake in all forms of writing. And just like anytime, I feel bad for, who's this young man, Francisco, because this is also why, like, I do implore students to get like someone to look at their work, be not a parent, or like, if you want, like, I often recommend, there's website, like, just like getting like someone to look over, like someone who knows writing, look over for one time for like a half hour or an hour, because there's stuff like that where any English teacher or competent writer would immediately like point that out to you and be like, yo, change that. And that is a 10-second fix that significantly improves the quality of this application. And especially for personal statements, what makes this so hard, like, I feel bad for this dude. I'm not mad like the last one. I feel bad for the kid, because like tiny stuff like this, I know it matters. I know, and it must, because the nature of how these are actually judged. And with a little bit of change, they can be much better. And what's the last point? Oh, I have my own wall of text. Like, it's ironic that I complain about people just fucking without paragraphs.
I think that's a great piece of advice that someone can take away from hearing this one, is just have someone read over your essay.
Yeah. I've been tasked to note why I think they got into Harvard, and I'm not going to like be, so like, I'm me, and I'm going to be extra sensitive to like, didn't read it, because I'm me, and I like my mind wanders. However, I do find it pretty actually remarkable that this is one of the essays that this website is promoting. However, like, maybe that's my takeaway, because
That's a good point.
That's actually bizarre. Like, this is their best like copy. They're like, you can sound just like this. Like, oh, you can have a 300 word wall of text. That's pretty weird. I give this student credit. They were probably a very strong student overall, and that's the case for all these students. Like, no, you don't write your way into Harvard, full stop. However, My guess is this is a very strong student who did have a strong background and everything like that, probably to the point that the reader of this either didn't care or was willing to go back and actually read a wall of text, which I may have been willing to do. Although when I've read individual lines, like nothing jumps out to me. Also, important students, don't use indents in your essays. I don't like them, and it's because the HTML box you'll be pasting this in. Just use don't use tab to make an indent. You just hit enter and then just use like new lines, and it reads much nicer when you actually implement it in the box, as well as like indents can kind of screw with like the HTML formatting box, so I don't recommend it. You just do like clean line breaks. That's what they want to see. Very important.
Cool. And so the next one is going to be Michael's essay. So, background on Michael is basically his mom works as a full-time caregiver. So, she isn't at home to help him at all. So, he basically says he lives alone. But his mom does call him 3 times a day, once in the morning, once after school, and once at 7 p.m. And so, Michael's essay, he's commenting on those phone calls. That last call always weighed heavily on my heart. When around friends and their families, I would often put my head down and smile because their interactions would remind me so much of when my mother was with me every day. It made me miss her insurmountably, to the point where I began to despise every aspect of this independence. To me, it was loneliness, isolation, and nights laying in bed, wishing I had a loved one in the house that I could talk to or hug. I was forced to become a man instead of living out my days as a kid. What hurt me the most, though, was knowing that my mother hated our situation even more than I did. She hated knowing her only child was growing up without her, and it hurt her more than words could explain. She would always say how I was her pride and joy, but I've always thought of myself to be her hope for a better life.
Yeah. So this one, I guess we can naturally connect to the first essay we read today, and this is a good example of why I think we led today with well, should we like write about these topics? Like, probably not, probably not, because I would say that this essay is also, like, especially this introduction is well written. I would say like the actual writing quality a little bit. That's not my, like, this has not gone awry. I do not feel like this is not farcical or anything like that. However, full stop, there is no scenario that any of my students would submit work about this topic. Like, this is kind of what my original piece about like mental health is. I think I wrote in the piece, like, it would never happen, because if they were that set on it, I would resign and refund them in full and abandon all acknowledgement of the process with them, rather than be part of the process in which they submit an essay about this topic.
That's actually why I wanted you to read it, because I was really curious to see what you would say about the subject.
Yeah, and this is why I don't really like to go into hard issues. This is why I write about how much they love playing like doing math problems with the grandma, but we do it in Mattie's way, so it's not bad. The first topic was the first like, even talking about hard issues, like, it kind of like caught up in it, because it's there's so many little edge cases or what have you, and that's why often it's much easier for me to kind of hand wave, like just like that third one I got mad about. Like, I got mad at that one because I know why it worked, and that's why my entire process really has been going through that similar train, because it's worked for me. It's worked for my students. I guess if you want deepest Mattie lore, is like, I was not an admissions reader. I was not an admissions counselor. I basically was a professional writer and marketer, and I end up in this job and I go, oh crap, how do you get a kid into college? Like, I knew the writing and I figured that out quickly. And the way I did was I basically tried a ton of different stuff, and maybe that's why, like, and yes, going back to my first year, I remember a student, there was an essay that was a lot like this. It was not about it was not about like their parents, but it was about like a psychological like issue he had and what came from it. And even at the time, I didn't have him submit it because I was like, this seems like a bad idea. However, the prompt was literally asking, what's the greatest challenge you've overcome? Because the UCs won't change the prompt. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And it felt like really miserable, and I felt like really dirty. Like, having a child, like a minor, recount like a really hard situation, and also having him do so that we could then write an essay, try to get him into college. Like, that felt really gross to me. And again, it has nothing to do with that student. I want to be very important. It was not uncomfortable with the student or anything like that. It was like, I felt like a monster about it. And if someone helped this student with this, like this essay, they had to talk to him about these experiences, and like, I totally support that. However, I more support it for someone who actually is like a mental health expert, and I'm cool with the teens, but I'm not that. I guess I just directly compare it to the first essay because that one is a topic that I think can work in a college essay. I don't think I certainly would not ever like encourage a student or like that's what we want to talk about. Like that's not how I view it. However, it was very important to them. It could work, just like the student 4 years ago with their sexuality. This one, I simply do not believe the topic is suitable for college admissions, if only because like when you're applying to college, it's an application. You're applying to be a student, and that's a line I'll use a lot because it kind of goes in my general mindset. And this isn't what you write about or want to talk about when you're applying to do anything. Like it's not relevant. How is this kind of experience going to imply that you're going to be like the best student or like a good member of a community? It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And what you're actually falling into is you're trying to like kind of get into college, I guess, because they like feel bad for you. And that sounds really harsh, but like, and I'm sure there's more like they overcome the adversity or what have you. But I guess being an adult reading this stuff is like, that's my takeaway. Is like that, like I feel bad for this kid. It's a crappy life. And maybe that's why I also feel bad that I'm saying like this, I don't think it's a very good college essay, but you don't want that's like this is pretty much the situation you were going to put your missions reader in. Like, they feel bad for you and feel bad that like they don't really like they don't like you don't match the rubric or what have you. But that does not lead to you getting into schools.
And I wonder too, like the more that students see these on the internet, the more they feel compelled that they need to have a subject that talks about kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked if this like discussion of like this first essay versus this one is probably what this people will be most like notable about, is that it is not just that I don't believe that you have to trauma dump in order to get into college. I am the exact opposite. I actively believe that writing about like stuff like that, like writing about like what's been hard on you is probably, I would say, at least 9 times out of 10, if not 99 times out of 100, like either actively not what I recommend or the wrong way to do it, or just as commonly, it can work if you want to do it. However, you could also write about how much you love learning, God damn it, and like that will also get you into college. Like, and it's so much easier. Like that is going to be an emphasis, especially when it comes to topic discussion and like what to write about. It's not just a matter of like what works. It's also a matter of what works, and also is way faster and way easier and way more fun and easy to do. But like the big secret is they tend to kind of be similar. They're like that is my process is the process should be pretty fast and easy and chill, but also totally get you into college because it's what they're looking for. And like that's what I plan to basically share with the world. I mean, and yeah, because this like this probably sucked to write, you know?
It does feel like, yeah, he had to go through some difficulties to write this.
Right. And I guess I'll end with why did they get into Harvard is I would have to know more about Michael and their background, I suppose, in general. Also, even by that criteria, I think this is a poor version of this essay where this is a line I'm surprised I haven't said is like, it's super, it feels so cynical, but it's like, Michael's mother isn't applying to college, right? Like he is. And so much of these 2 paragraphs are dedicated to her. They're like, this is it's a bad topic that I don't recommend, handled in a way that I don't think is effective because, and again, we can directly compare it to that first essay about the otter. I don't really know what the otter was a reference to, but I'm sure it was handled correctly.
But you also had a blog post about this where you kind of like your number one guidance was this essay is about you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it seems like Michael talks too much about his mom.
Right. I will find that especially with essays that don't work, is like multiple things will jump out to me. And usually maybe the second essay we talked, like, I'll crank about the structure. Maybe that is a testament that like it passes, there's like multiple landmines, as I say, of like, no, I don't do that. No, don't do that. Don't do that. And like that second one passed the initial craze, like, oh, bra shopping with grandma. That's kind of funny. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you think about that? And that's what I wanted to read the whole thing because that one broke down like on a structural issue. It's like, well, it doesn't make any sense literary. This one, I'm sure I could critique. Yeah, that's what I think. It's like it almost feels like hollow for me to critique that's about your mother. Where like no, don't write about like domestic home abuse type stuff. Like that's not a good idea. Like there's different levels of I'm immediately going to like not like an idea or like let's try something else there.
So we actually have more of these essays to talk about and to get Mattie's insight on. So stay tuned for part 2 that will be coming soon. And we'll even have an episode where we get to talk about essays that don't work at all. And Mattie, what do you think for students who listen to this episode today are like the main takeaways?
There's a lot more coming. You know, like that was probably the thing that happened the most. Like, I want to do an episode about this. I want to do an episode about this. I want to do an episode about this. This is a complicated process, and I hope the takeaway is not that like, oh, I'm doomed because like I want to do any of these things. It is that even in these essays that I believe are like this is the work that another website was promoting, like advertise their services. I found like a lot of big issues with them, and I guess maybe it's like stay tuned when I present my system and like my advice, because holy crap, it better be good because I'm a real hater otherwise, aren't I? But just that if you like some of the things you heard, it's like keep like comment and subscribe, because like that's what we're going to be talking about. Is it's a lot. Yeah, it's easy for me to kind of critique the different works or talk about like what was good or what wasn't and be a hater. I am just as excited to kind of build up from the beginning. How do you actually make something that does work, or at least I believe it works, that is different than all of these, and I look forward to getting to do that.
Awesome. So more to come. Stay tuned.
Thank you for watching College with Mattie. For more information or a coaching session with Mattie, visit collegewithmattie.com. You can follow College with Mattie on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Tune in next week for more episodes, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.